We're joined by the film's writer and director, Martin McDonagh, whose films, including In Bruges and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, have established him as one of the leading voices in 21st century cinema. And I'm thrilled, too, to welcome 3 of the stars of the Banshees of Inisherin. Kerry Condon has been a regular McDonagh collaborator on stage and screen, starring in 3 Billboards, as well as Martin's plays The Lieutenant of Inishmore and The Cripple of Inishman. And reuniting with Martin and each other some 14 years after In Bruges established an indelible on-screen partnership. Please welcome Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. So welcome one and all.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
And Martin, I wonder, I suppose the best place is always to start with you. Tell me a little bit about where this script emerged from, where this story came from inside. What were you thinking?
Just to tell a simple breakup story, really. But a breakup between two fellas, a non-romantic relationship, and just to see how a simple thing like that, a simple sad starting fact, could unravel or become interesting, and that was pretty much of it. To put the sadness of a breakup on screen.
Now, you'd visited the Aran Islands before, obviously on stage. Was this in any way related to that earlier work?
Not at all. I had a title, The Banshees of Inisherin, which was going to be sort of, in my head, the third part of an Aran Islands trilogy, which was Lieutenant and Cripple, both of which Kerry was in. But I wrote a draft of it, and it never worked, so I kind of threw that away. But I always liked the title, and I always felt like I would come back to it, both as a title and as a sort of vague ending of that vague trilogy. But this story is a brand new thing that was written about 3 years ago, I think. But the title sort of still works sort of perfectly for it. Changed it to Inisherin because we didn't want to set it on a specific real life island. So Inisherin is a made up place. It's a brand new thing, but keeping the old sort of title.
So 3 years ago would have been before the pandemic?
Yes, just before.
Because one of the things that I find fascinating about the film, I don't know if you guys saw it as well, is the sense of isolation that you get from this island, this kind of island community. It did kind of put me in the mood of what we've been going through the last couple of years, and I wonder if that was something that played on your minds at all.
Well, for me, it's both that, the isolation of it, and also sort of Brendan's character's beginning of the journey of wasting, the choice of, do you waste time if you're artistic? Are we wasting? And those are thoughts I had a lot during the pandemic. Of course, this was written before it, but it took a year and a half before we started shooting, so maybe those things were imbued within the script, or certainly in my directing thoughts about it. And that's part of definitely, I think, Brendan's story is, do we waste, like I felt like, as we all did, are we wasting, how much time we're going to waste during this pandemic? And after, if we come out of it, what do? Do you just keep going along, or do you rush to make up time? And I think that's probably what a lot of Brendan's character is feeling at the start of the film.
Well, I'm curious for you guys what it's like when, you've all had your history with this man here, what it's like when a new Martin McDonagh script lands in your inbox. Is it a sort of an immediate read? I mean, does he give you hints about what's going to come? I mean, like, how does it work?
It's tough to get through.
Yeah.
Kind of comes alive on camera, but it's tough to get through as a read. No, it's incredibly exciting. I mean, it really, and the history that we've all known each other for quite a while, and the history that I have with Martin and Brendan from, well, Kerry I worked with before any of them. We did Intermission together way back when. But then the history I have with these two fellas, and knowing that we were going to revisit something that, of course, I knew was going to be original. But I had a feeling it was going to be sad. I had a feeling it was going to be violent. I had a feeling it was going to be funny. And I had a feeling it was going to be disturbing and provoking and all those things. And it was. I was just incredibly excited and incredibly moved. And a little nervousness as well, because within that excitement and within that kind of internal movement, was a nervousness that was nothing to do with, oh, I wonder, is Martin going to send me a good script? Because it's fucking ridiculous. Of course, there's going to be incredible worth to what he sends, and it's going to be brilliant. That's kind of a... But a fear, like, what if I like, because I love you so much, I'd have a fear, what if I don't like it? We had a conversation once actually where he said to me, can we have an arrangement where if I write a film and you're not right for something in it, or I don't want you to be in it, that's okay, but if I send you a script as well and you don't want to be in it, that's okay. And there's part of me, the fucking idiot that I am, that would prefer you to not cast me in a film than get a script from you and not want to do it. In a way. Because you know, so there was a little, only not much now. Not much, Joe. We're talking in small increments. A little bit of that, but then I read it and I just fucking adored it, you know, and I just and I've loved it since.
Well, what about for you, Kerry? I mean, you know, you played Martin's work on stage, on screen. How would you describe the particular frisson of his writing and the characters that he creates and what you can imbue in them with all the material that you have in front of you?
I don't want to say it's easy for me, but it was like the first professional theatre job that I did when I was 17 was Lonesome West, and then The Lieutenant came shortly after that, and it was a year and a half of my life doing that play. So it was kind of where I learned, like, formally how to be an actress, because I just was going on instinct because I hadn't any training. So I kind of learned through Martin's work and the rehearsal process. And then also I am from the country in Ireland, so I am very similar to those characters, I would say. So it's
Kind of. Maybe not all of them.
So I think it's kind of comes very naturally to me more than other scripts and other parts and stuff. Yeah, I have to be honest, it does. Yeah.
And Brendan, what about for you?
Yeah. Well, it's just, this is the stuff you wait for. You don't wait, you do other stuff. But this, particularly after, like, I worked with Martin first on a short, which he, I remember was wondering, you know, if it was what he wanted to do or not, to direct his own writing. And I remember he said, would you want anybody else to direct it, really? Because his specificity was so clear, and his kind of control of what he had envisaged in the words was, the clarity was there from the very beginning. He walked home with an Oscar for it. It was like a brilliant short, brilliantly told, brilliantly audacious, and had everything. I knew of his work. My son Donald had worked on The Lieutenant. So I knew his work, and I had seen the trilogy in one day. Drew had put it on one day, and I thought that was one of the highlights of my life, the best day I was dreading going to see 3 plays in a row, and I came back out exhilarated and flabbergasted by it. So I was a big sort of, I always wanted to work with him anyway. So when the short came, we had an interesting discussion about that. And then In Bruges was an absolute dream, and hooked up with Colin. So I knew this was kind of brewing, perhaps, but with the films, they're delicate. The timing is delicate. You know, COVID came in the way at one point. You never quite know until you're actually out there, and even then, till you get into the editing room. So the script was extraordinarily exciting to get. The Colin character, his journey became so apparent, but such a challenge. I couldn't wait, basically. So, I mean, when the script comes through, it reminded me of when my lads were into Harry Potter. They used to buy 2 books because they couldn't wait for some fella to finish the other one, you know. And they'd go into it and they'd be gone. They'd be gone until the whole thing was done. And with Martin's script, that's what happens. I just disappear, that's it. And you go into his world and you can't wait. You want to start, you know. So it's always a thrill. And getting back with the kind of gang after In Bruges was particularly delicious.
Well, listen, I'm sure an incredible reunion to have, but you captured something very special within Bruges as well. I wonder for you, Martin, you know, reuniting these 2 actors, especially to kind of come together again after that experience. Were there any kind of nerves that go into that? Like, did you have to?
Definitely. I mean, I definitely wanted to work with the boys again because we had so much fun on the first one. But yeah, there was trepidation to not do anything lesser than Bruges. In the years since it came out, we've all had people come up and say how much they liked it to us individually, I think, and that's wonderful. But you don't want to disappoint those people at the same time as you don't want to replicate exactly what you did before. So there was some trepidation, but I kind of knew the tone of this was going to be very different. If Bruges is almost a love story between their characters, this is like the end of that, the end of love, which was interesting.
Thought it'd be interesting about the ending.
Well, we're not going to talk about
We're
the
not going
ending.
to talk about that because we can't.
Haven't seen it yet. What happens?
Spoiler alert.
Which one did you do?
But just in terms of the tone of it, in the playing of it, it's not as friendly between the two of you, and that was something that's very different to explore on each day of shooting.
Yeah, to put it mildly, yeah. To put it mildly, it was very hard. It was harsh. It was hard. And what was very interesting, actually, in the making of it for me, was like myself and Colin got on like a house on fire in Bruges. And if that would creep in, or if there was going to be anything of the script would kind of creep into our relationship off screen. And it was kind of really, it was kind of liberating in a way to understand that you don't have to do that.
Right.
In order to be perfectly in your character. Some people come in, I've had that happen where people come up and won't talk to you.
I was nervous.
Yeah, were you?
Yeah, I was a little bit.
About what?
About whether he was going to have a little bit more distant.
You could have chatted to me, sure.
You were out there. I knew you would do that. We did have chats, didn't we?
Yes, you were grand.
I was grand with you, but I wasn't. I was just wondering because it was very. I knew where he was going to go. I had a feeling how he was looking at this script and how it was a mountain and that he wanted to climb it and that was important to climb it, as it was for me, as it was for all of us. And I just wasn't sure. So I had a bit of nervousness. I was fucking delighted. 5 seconds after seeing you. Yeah, I was just relieved because I knew that I didn't need to. As you said, some people do have that process where they need to have that space. And look, if somebody does as well on the day, I get it. I'm not going to go over and go, you're not talking to me, can we not just act and any chance of a hug? No. I'm not that needy, right? But fucking hell, I was just so glad that we could come to this separation from a similar place that we cohabitated while we were doing in Bruges, which for me anyway was a mad deep respect and affection and ultimately love. And because that was what was on the table as being lost as well in the whole thing. You know, it was kind of, I mean, there's an argument where you could go, it's actually Bruges 10 years later, 90 years before.
Yeah.
It was a similar love and affection, but this time it was the other side of that. It was the dark side of it. It was the loss of it, you know. So I was sorry.
No, it's interesting. Process is interesting. I prefer working with people that strive to do something on the same hymn sheet from their various perspectives. And I remember saying to you when we came in, do you need to kind of have that distance? It's different. Process during the day is different.
There's days when I'd be off in the corner and you'd be off in the corner and we'd be off in the corner.
Fine.
And that was all
It's not always a choice, basically. Like sometimes you
just need to stay close to a mood. You want to be on your own and that's all, you know.
But you don't have to blank an actor for the entire project because you're
not creating behavioural lines in the sand every fucking day and sending little fucking psychological signals.
People want to do that, let them do it.
I said you're not, and I was looking at him. I was making it very singular.
It's not
each
enjoyable.
to his own.
Exactly.
I said that. Each to his own. But I thank fuck. For me. And I think just because I'm willing to go and was open enough to go wherever the script I felt needed me to go, and he knows enough of that about me that just didn't need it. And if he had done that. Some actor's going to watch this now and nail me someday. Know how fragile I am psychologically. But if he had... No, you I
go on, I won't. I'll be nice.
But if he had him, I wouldn't have been. It would have murky the waters, because the whole fucking thing for me, the whole script was about love, was about respect, was about regard, and how those things get lost under the tumult of words unspoken, dreams unfulfilled, and losses that haven't been grieved properly. And that's what the whole thing was about. So to bring murky psychological waters and underpinnings would have had me a nervous wreck in a way that wouldn't have been conducive to telling the story. But honestly, I've worked with actors that really don't want to do the character thing, and I'm cool with it. I'm just glad, because the place of love that the worlds that you create exists within me, that it wasn't that this time around. Yeah, it was. No, it was. Yeah.
Each of the characters in this, not just these two, but you know, I mean, it's certainly the case for Siobhan, it's the case for Dominic, it's the case for everybody in the village. There is a narrative, there is a path. That, you know, they are not all existing solely to react to the lead story that's going on, which is something that we don't often see, and it's true. Yeah. It's a hallmark of Martin's
their
writing.
own universe.
Yes, they absolutely are.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of discussions going. There are a lot of debates to be had in amongst all of these stories. You know, because they're all morally grey, and I wonder how much room there was for you to kind of have those debates on set, how much you encouraged that, how much you'd rather not encourage it. You know, I mean, did you have those kind of questions with each other and those discussions with each other about, you know, what's inspiring Colin to do what he does?
You know, that's a big thing, and it's something that Martin does that not everybody either gets the facility to do or insists upon doing or wants to do. So we rehearsed and we ironed out certain things. Like our relationship was very interesting in terms of, and we had various different backstories within that, and to what extent there was a closeness there. So the rehearsal kind of ironed out a lot of that stuff, didn't it? Like it was formal.
Yeah, and it just put out all the questions there of you know, why is he being quite so harsh in the very start? Yeah. Is that the truth, or is that the only move he can see that will work?
Yeah.
And those things just imbued each later scene, I think, with different dynamics and different tones, I guess. That it wasn't one note, like a guy just saying harshly, I don't want to be friends with you. It's like so much more subtle than that, and it almost got more subtle as it went on. It didn't start off with a wishy-washy something. It was like too harsh, and then why is it too harsh, and what can be done to lessen that almost.
Yeah.
And I think it's only through
Which
rehearsal.
is kind of the way it plays out in real life when people do those things, don't they? You go, and I'm going to do it, and you do it first, and then you kind of second guess yourself based on their reaction. Like, maybe I was too lousy.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it.
Or if you don't do it, if you let people down easy and
they don't take the hint.
And
don't do
but
it.
it can be tried 3 times as painful for everybody, and then someone say, right, I'm just going to cut it off the knees, which is what this guy does, and you can feel the sense of the difficulty watching its consequences. So it's all about that. So, but we did that rehearsal was for me, and was the same with In Bruges. Absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
He could have done a lot of things to help prevent Porrick, to help Porrick get the idea. He chooses to cut off the fingers that he needs to play, to play his music.
Yeah.
Why does he make that choice? Did you ever kind of rationalise that? Did you ever try and
I did. I asked him.
And what did he say?
Jeez, I can't remember. shut up and do it. That's backstory. You take care of that.
Yeah, he keeps saying this. He quoted a thing. Like, I had my own rationale for it, in a way. I think, what can I say to this person to let me go? Just to let me go. And I said, the most extreme thing I could possibly think of, I'll take the thing that means the most, and I'll wreck it. Now do you understand?
Yeah.
It still doesn't happen.
Not really, no.
And he feels that if, at some point, he's talking about going for his art, going for his commitment to his thing. And he said, well, I said I'll do this, so I'll do it. And there was a scene which was very interesting where we talked about his degree of satisfaction with himself for having just go with the commitment to do or not. Yeah. But the thing about the actual thing itself also apparently is a situation where, if I could be so bold to say what you told me, which was that that it's quite common amongst writers to wake up in a nightmare and feel that their hand is no longer capable of writing.
Wished. Is that the case? Do you ever have those nightmares?
No, but I do have.
Finger not hand.
Then not go there. No, I think there is a writer thing of like.
You're losing your hand.
Yeah, or doing something to your own.
Your foot.
Or somebody,
If I was a footballer, it would be more my foot.
yeah, that you use the thing that's close, that's the things that allows you to do, to paint or to express yourself. Your voice, if you're a singer or if you're an actress and your voice is gone, we go out and we think we've forgotten our lines. Right, so the thing that allows you to express your artistic sensibilities or whatever it is that you want, if that thing is threatened, it actually becomes about everything. So I think my rationale was he made a commitment to risk everything in order to facilitate the space that he needed to create properly.
Right.
And then it kind of gets a little out of control.
Out of hand.
Couldn't quite put my finger.
Lads, don't start.
We're allowed.
That's a print.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, but in
But it's
Kerry-
not too much explanation. I hope I shouldn't over-explain.
No, you can't over-explain. I think that's great, and Kerry as well with Siobhan. You know, it feels to me like she's waited a lifetime to escape this island. She's stopped herself from doing it for such a long time. What did you kind of make of that struggle within her?
Oh, I guess it wasn't necessarily like that. Maybe she thought she was going to leave. You know, maybe she just longed. You know, I don't think she thought she was going to do it. I think this kind of pushed it, the decision forward or whatever. I don't think she would have had the guts to do it if this hadn't happened or whatever, or would have felt guilty for leaving him. But I think it was coming from lots of different places, you know, like not just that she was a different person on the island and nobody really understood her. I think it was just more like loneliness and grief and, you know, and wanting to live her life and not having sex with anyone either. Like on a basic level, she was like totally going to just die alone if she stayed there. So, but I think this kind of pushed the decision for her. I don't know if this had happened. Maybe she would have just continued on in a depression or sunk into a depression and kind of kept it to herself, maybe.
Which would have been a very self-destructive thing to do, and I'm starting to sense a theme almost here that all of these characters, for one reason or another, have a kind of a self-destructive tendency, which I think we all do, right? We all have that.
Right.
And for Porrick as well, I mean, it's that in a way, you know, as much as Colin sent him down this dark path, he also opens his eyes to the fact that there's more to life than just being in the, even if he doesn't necessarily want to hear it.
Than just
being in the pub every day, just chats in the pub. Yeah.
I see. That's the thing. It's the thing I love about Porrick. I don't think he thinks that there is, or I certainly know that he's had a rude awakening by the end of the film.
Yeah.
Into the nature of loneliness.
Yeah.
And the pain of loneliness and isolation, you know, which
I know,
he's
he
never
was so
experienced before.
dismissive.
So dismissive,
Yeah.
lonely, you know, who's fucking lonely? Do you ever get lonely? What's she talking about?
Yeah.
Well, it's visited upon me by everyone that I love by the end of the film. And I as Colin, looking at the film, reading the script, can understand why, but for Porrick, it's absolutely crushing. And I don't know who, who pays the ultimate price. Everyone pays a price for what they need. And there were moments in reading the script where me looking from the outside, you know, you objectify something, and then you become a subject of it, and you close the distance between yourself and that thing if you want to understand it, of course. Well, there was moments where I could understand what a shite brother he really was to Siobhan. You know, he's so selfish and fucking never really
does
gave her a moment's
nothing
thought. He does
around the
nothing
house.
around the house and everything, and it just doesn't really give that much of a fuck, but loves her and thinks she's great as long as she's doing the bits and pieces that need doing. But Porrick is so honest and so simple that he doesn't know any of that stuff, and he adores her, and he adores him, and he adores Jenny, and everything that he adores in life, everything that he adores is taken from him. So I don't know what he learns that is in any way constructive to the rest of his days. That's the thing. He does learn things like loneliness. He does learn a new form of pain in his life.
I did say his
But-
eyes were opened, and not necessarily. I didn't necessarily say that he paid attention to what was in front of them. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, absolutely. Yeah,
I think
his
there's,
eyes.
there's a key difference there.
Well,
I mean,
he
that's-
did pay attention as well. He had to pay attention. But again,
yes.
these were all impositions.
Yeah.
None of these were choices.
Yes,
None of them were
yes.
kind of, and you're not saying it either, were about evolution or self-growth or kind of the kind of kiln that sometimes things can be hardened and can grow strong through experiencing that heat. None of that stuff. You know, just loneliness and isolation by the end of it. But all of us pay the price. She pays an enormous price. I imagine Siobhan pays a price. I imagine the guilt that she feels as much as she's earned her freedom. I don't know. But I'd say...
Well, maybe once I'm gone, that would wear off after a while.
I would hope so. I fucking hope so. That's the biggest prayer. Like the biggest prayer I have for everyone in the whole thing. I don't know what happens between Colin and Pádraig. The biggest heartbreak, like someone was saying, do you think the two of them kill each other a month after the film? Like, I don't really know, but if I'm going to just play devil's advocate,
innocence though as well.
I think they end up in the same bar, and that's the heartbreaking thing. For the rest of their lives in the island, they end up going to the same fucking bar and at different ends of the bar. And my one hope for life to find a new way of expansion, expression, a bit of joy, a bit of sex, possibly a fucking orgasm is
probably not. If
one. I know. It's Siobhan. She's the hope.
It's interesting that this film, that we're having that discussion about this film, that like what happens after the film ends has such a place in people's minds, because I do think that's, again, I think it's a hallmark of what Martin does. These characters feel alive, so they must continue. This
It
must
feels
just be
very
a chapter.
difficult to get into spoiler alert country when you're talking about it, obviously, at this point.
Well, I think most people watching will have seen the film.
hope so.
So the situation for me too has a degree where there's a loss of innocence, and there's a time when enforced innocence becomes ignorance, and that's not necessarily the best place to be. And that it feels like Pádraig's an innocent, and I think Colin can't. It's not really helping having a pure innocent anymore, because I think he's come to terms with things, the harsher realities of, you know, life and its inevitability of death and all that. And so when it's the loss of innocence is enforced on Pádraig, and how he deals with that. So, like, I'm an eternal sort of an optimist, and my feeling would be, I think Colin has learned something about the damage that his quest has taken, and he has to come to terms with the regret and all that, and the guilt of that. He does make kind of a gesture at the end, I think. And in terms of being in the pub, I would feel that if Pádraig can come to terms with a certain loss of innocence, that forgiveness is always a possibility.
Right.
And when you look at the Civil War in the mainland, that's where I think it took 100 years, mind you. But that in reconciliation, in full knowledge, not in maintaining a position of purity in a place of ignorance or innocence. That's where I think the hope is. So I find hope in it. But
I find hope in the final line as well. I think it's the
dog line.
I think so too, and I mean at any time.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah.
But it's that thing about, one person's destruction is a community's shame.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
It's like the Scarlet Letter. Who's really experiencing the shame? The carrier of the Scarlet Letter, or the community that looks away from her?
This feels like the birth of the Irish Western. I mean, it's the landscapes are so epic.
Yeah. We did talk about it being a Western, even in rehearsals, but in costume design and the design of the pub and the houses, it felt that way. It did feel
Absolutely,
like two gunmen coming back to the bar where they're squabbling.
I had to stop myself saying a sarsaparilla when I came into the bar.
But like that John Ford looking through doors of people coming in, the Searchers kind of vibe was definitely something we wanted to tap into,
But part of what's interesting about the cast of characters we meet in this film is we discover there's a huge amount of darkness going on, and it's peripheral to the main story. In a way, the fact that it's peripheral, the fact that the community treats Dominic like they do.
Well, truth unravels truth.
It does.
Truth exposes truth.
Does.
And as cruel as his actions are, there's truth, which is the
No,
only,
so
which is
Dominic,
why.
Sorry.
No, absolutely.
Dominic was tactless. So, he was, they had a reason to feel the way they felt.
Which part are we on now?
Yeah,
What page are we on? What page are we on?
Stuff. It's not all about your character. It's all of us in this movie.
What
just
scene is
said
she talking
the
about?
people in the island, the way they
Dominic's not here to defend himself.
the way they treated Dominic, poor Dominic, and you said the way they treated him, his father was out to him, but then the lady in the shop, you know, she says like, oh, he's annoying or whatever, but like he was a tactless person.
Yeah, but when did that start?
But I'm a tactless person, but like we're all tactless from time to time. But yeah, we are as human beings. God, please.
Okay, I'm wrong, you're right.
Good.
I just wanted to hear you say it. Could I get a copy of this interview, please? Just that moment. I'm right, you're wrong.
No, I said
20 years.
You're right.
20 years. I know. I'm saying it as the first person. I'm right, you're wrong.
Okay, go on.
Listen, on that note, I there is one other aspect to the film that I'd like to address before we wrap it up, and it's the innocent bystanders in a Martin McDonagh a piece of work. I mean, obviously there's the little boy in Bruges, there's the cat, there's
Jenny.
There's Jenny. Poor
stop
Jenny.
it.
Pour one out for Jenny, the miniature donkey. What is it that you have against innocent bystanders in your work, Martin?
Are they that innocent though? That's the. Is any of us?
It was my thing. It was my.
Did you cut him off yourself?
Yeah, your own fault.
That's not the point.
Jenny's understudy.
Oh, Jenny's understudy never got the love. Rosie, you remember the name? Rosie was lovely. Rosie was lovely, and people at the crew would be pushing Rosie, Jenny's second out of the way to get to Jenny, the star. And I was like, look, that's the fucking problem with fame. You say, you say it was amazing. They'd go, Rosie, get out of the there's Jenny. Not you. You're an animal lover. Yeah, it was amazing. I'd go over and be nice to Rosie as well because of that. I'd go, we all respect you too, Rosie.
I
Now,
know.
please, get yourself a cup of tea.
How
We
did
don't
Rosie
need you for a
respond
few
to
hours.
that?
She loved it. She was cute. She was really pro. Yeah.
Proper trooper, yeah.
Well, on that note, in memory of Rosie, is Rosie still alive?
I think she's still alive.
They all are.
Not in memory of
So
Rosie.
is Jenny.
Well, there you go then.
Yeah.
They're all
In
fine.
real life.
In real life, everyone's fine.
Exactly.
Nothing was damaged. Nobody was hurt
Well,
in the
let's not
making of
go
this
there.
film.
Right.
Did you lose any fingers? You were all right? They're all still attached?
Grown back.
Excellent.
They grew back. Great.
On that note, thank you guys so much
Thank
for
you.
joining
Thanks,
me.
Joe. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.